Phew. It has been a while since I made a video. A few months at least.
It's been a year!
It's been 2 years, actually. But I offer no apologies. I've been busy. And after all, I really only ever made these videos for fun or to blow off some steam. I've considered making videos several times over the past several months. Every time, though, I either lost interest or I didn't get to it while it was relevant. This video is a little different because I can take my time with it, and my interest will not wane. So what caught my attention? Superhero stuff. Like most people, I roam around the internet at random, and for a while I saw a whole lot of debate about who would win. The hypothetical battle has always been a topic of heated debate.
You think Mighty Mouse could beat up Superman? What are you, cracked?
What if Captain America fought Darth Vader? What if Batman fought Spider-Man? Who would win? And the argument ensues. And in the modern world, you can have that argument with total strangers. But I do gotta say that it is good to see these exercises of imagination. My only real complaint is that the characters that are discussed are usually very well-known, very mainstream characters, available to even the most casual of tourists. I realize that the Disney Marvel movies are very famous, but I didn't bother watching very many of them.
I haven't got time for this Mickey Mouse bullshit!
Of course, I don't have to watch that crap to know about these characters. I've been reading about them my entire life, so I can veer off into the mystical realm of obscurity for my hypotheticals. Real nerds should not play in the kiddie pool of current-day pop culture cinematic adaptations. Real nerds should put together dream matches like Commander Rand versus Adam Strange, the Badger versus the Fox, E-Man versus the Man of the Atom, Cerebus the Aardvark versus Miyamoto Usagi, Skywolf versus Blackhawk, Archie versus Hip Flask, the Iron Major versus Iron Jaw versus Claw the Unconquered, John Blacksad versus Sam Simeon. And hey, it may have an obvious winner, but why not, Stanley and his monster versus Calvin and Hobbes? My point in listing these off is just to demonstrate that I am not the average tourist of a fan who knows modern series and modern superhero films. I am familiar with the old stories, the real stuff. I have read a few too many comic books. And by a few too many, I mean that I'm only a couple issues away from becoming the Flaming Carrot. And come to think of it, the Flaming Carrot would be great in a dream match versus Mr. Nobody. You see that little notation in the corner? That's not a joke. I had to cut a lot out of this script. I am so helplessly mired in the fantasies of comic book worlds that I meandered off into unnecessary asides several times. I could have just cut them all out, but instead I made the questionable decision to give this video an appendix. You can ignore it, and you probably should, but if you want to know what that crack about the Flaming Carrot meant, you can go watch the first entry in the follow-up appendix video, just so you can get the joke. Back on topic now. When I hear the who would win debate, I don't usually take part, especially when I see it online. That's because when people have this debate, they don't usually have any real reason for backing one character over another, except that they like one character better than another. It's about as useful as two kids arguing about who shot first.
Pow, pow, pow! Pow, pow! I got you with my cosmic ray. You're dead. Hey, mister, you seen it. I disintegrated him first, didn't I?
Am I here to settle any of these debates?
Who's disintegrated?
He is.
I told you.
No, I'm not going to settle anything. I'm just here to give a little history of one particular character. The character. The gold standard of the who would win debates. Superman. Naturally, fans of various other stories are certain that their favorite heroes could triumph over the Man of Steel. Thor, Homelander, Goku, Saitama, Omni-Man, and so on. I do notice, though, that I never hear anyone ask if Solar or Nexus or Captain Paragon could beat Superman. In these fantasy battles, Superman is usually pitted against the strongest characters. because Superman is often described as the strongest of all heroes. So, who really could beat Superman? If you try to look it up to get an answer, you won't find much worth reading. Not in the top results, anyway. I looked up a bunch of lists, and most of them were pretty similar. These are some of the characters that the experts decided to name, and most of these names were on multiple lists. Thor, the Martian Manhunter, Captain Marvel. Actually, yes, those aren't bad picks. Any of those men could win. Then again, any of them could lose. Oh, and the character's name is Captain Marvel. Shazam is the wizard that gave him his powers. When he first appeared in Whiz Comics in 1940, the name was Captain Marvel, and it was only a greedy, chicken shit lawsuit from Marvel that changed that. Lawyers should not be able to tell fans what the characters are called. Sorry about that. Who's next? Wonder Woman. Well, she might win, but that's not a safe bet. She would much more likely lose. Same thing for the Flash. A possible win, but not highly likely. Doctor Strange, Dr. Fate. Well, yeah, magic is one of Superman's great weaknesses, just like kryptonite. I don't think that this is what the question is really asking, though. It's not supposed to be about who has powers Superman is vulnerable to. It's who has enough power to overcome Superman. Aquaman. Not a chance. I don't give a shit if people like his movie. He cannot beat Superman. And look at the reasoning here. Magical or not, that trident ain't gonna be enough. And Aquaman's Atlantean strength is nothing compared to Superman's power.
That's like shooting a BB gun at a freight train, Doc.
Ghost Rider, Magneto, Captain Atom, the Scarlet Witch, Rogue, Kitty Pryde. No, these are all wrong. Professor X. Right, that could happen. I could digress about the abuses of the Professor X character, but instead I'll just say that using telepathy to answer this question is kinda cheating, like using magic. The Vision. Would you know this guy if he wasn't in the movies? You see, I would. I've been reading about the Vision for many years. I'm familiar with the character. And no, he would not likely defeat Superman. He could, admittedly, but if I had $1,000 to bet on it, I'd put it all on the Man of Tomorrow, not the Android Avenger. If you want to know why, check out the appendix. Superboy Prime. Now, this idea offends me in a bunch of different ways. But to keep from ranting about another abused character, I'll just point out that in this example, they're telling you that Superman can beat Superman. Dr. Manhattan, Galactus, the Spectre. This is really missing the point. You might as well put Q on the list. And this one, the Presence. The Presence is God in the DC universe. This example is telling you that God can beat Superman.
Well, I suppose so.
I read a bunch of these lists, and nearly all of them were the same. People got paid to come up with that. God, that's depressing. Standardized crap, mostly mainstream characters with one or two rare ones thrown in just to prove that they have read some comics.
A sly declaration of new classic status slipped into a list of old safe ones. Very pussy.
They get a lot wrong. And these goofy articles always represent a very modern approach to this question. Superman has been around since 1938. There is more than 80 years of Superman history. But the past 15 years is all that these people seem to know. So allow a crotchety but knowledgeable comic book geek from the bygone days of passion and belief to give you a more interesting list. Now, I could argue about which characters could or would defeat Superman, but anyone can do that. So instead, in this video, I'm going to tell you who has defeated Superman. 14 characters who have defeated Superman in personal combat. First off, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. Who has beaten Superman? Well, which Superman? At this point, even the average moviegoer is familiar with the concept of multiverses. There are several different examples of Superman characters. Anyway, the aforementioned lists are talking about the version of Superman from the last 10 or 15 years. But none of those stories count at all. DC Comics has been dead for a long time now. What is left is a soulless corpse dressed up like an old legend. If you're going to talk about Superman battles, it has to be a Superman worth believing in. In this video, the Superman in question is the Superman of Earth 1 with a mention of Superman of Earth 2. The Earth 2 version. That is the first Superman. Earth 1 was actually the second Superman. These Supermen constitute the vast majority of Superman stories that were told for 48 years. How do I explain the difference between them to people who don't read comic books? Well, George Reeves played a Superman based on the Earth 2 version. Christopher Reeves played a version based on Earth 1. That didn't help much, did it? Okay then. Superman at the height of his powers and abilities is Earth 1 or Earth 2. So anyone who can beat either of these guys is the real deal. I should also make this clear. There is more than one opinion of Superman's power level. A lot of people, both deep fans and casual viewers, seem to think that Superman is completely invulnerable and infinitely strong. And there are old comic books that represent him that way. But there are also lots of old comic books that insist that his powers, however vast, have limits. Those stories, with a limited Superman, are much more interesting. They are what I believe, and that is the perspective used to form this list. Now, a few rules about who qualifies. I'm not counting any use of kryptonite. I'm not counting any use of magic, as that is another of Superman's great weaknesses. I'm not counting any use of red sun radiation for the same reason. Oh, and no gravity, either. Even a lot of comic book fans don't know this, but Superman is quite vulnerable to gravity attacks. Also, no mind control or telepathy. And finally, no power siphons. The Parasite and the Galactic Golem, those were formidable enemies for Superman because they could diminish his power by draining it from him. But that doesn't count. You see, the point is, who could fight Superman and win? Tricking him or outplanning him is missing the point. And using magic certainly is missing the point. Pitting Superman against magic would be like pitting the Martian Manhunter against the Human Torch, Venom against Black Canary, Alan Scott against the Plant Man, or the Vision against Circuit Breaker. The question is not about any Achilles heel. The question is, who could face Superman's power and his skill using that power? It's not who could find a way around his powers. It's who could overcome them. So, which characters just flat out defeated Superman in straight-up battle? I've created a list of 14 characters who have done that exact thing. Before I get to that, though, there are 9 honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list, but I wanted to acknowledge them anyway. Honorable mention number 1. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman has already been mentioned in this video. She was among the characters listed by the online experts as someone who could defeat Superman. And you'll remember that I said that she has the potential to defeat Superman, but that it isn't likely. Hasn't Wonder Woman ever beaten Superman, though? Well, in the appendix video, there's an entire entry on why she doesn't qualify, if you really want to know. Honorable mention number 2. Another female powerhouse that fought Superman is Faora. She was another survivor of Krypton. A lot of fans complain about the number of survivors, but Faora was a Phantom Zone criminal, and that explanation makes perfect sense. Superman usually did very well fighting other Kryptonians. With Faora, he had his hands full, though, and it seemed that she would have won. But that's what makes her an honorable mention and not a winner. She never actually defeated Superman, even though she clearly could have. Okay, while we're at it, here's a third woman that makes the honorable mention list. Negative Woman. She was a member of the Doom Patrol, who inherited the negative energy being that was once fused with Negative Man. Negative Woman, while not in her right mind, came into confrontation with Superman, and she demonstrated just how much effect her power could have, even on the Man of Tomorrow. She was able to do enough damage to knock Superman clean out of the sky. So, why doesn't she count? It's because it's not apparent that she actually defeated Superman. Knocking him down is not the same thing as keeping him down, and the story doesn't make it clear. Was Superman lying there incapacitated for a while? Because if so, the negative woman should count. Myself, though, I don't think he was out of it at all. I think he hit the ground and got right back up, ready to fight again. Another honorable mention comes from DC Comics Presents issue number 13. Superman attempted to do battle with a large fleet of starships from the future. And he lost. Bad. He survived, but he learned the hard way that not even he is a match for that kind of firepower. This doesn't make the list because, well, this isn't a character. This isn't even a single starship. This was a massive armada. The only reason I listed it here was to demonstrate that even Superman's supposed invulnerability does have limits. He can be overpowered, and it does not take a superhuman of godlike ability to do it. Honorable mention number 5. BlackRock. BlackRock is another example of a being with enough power to damage Superman, without any of Superman's traditional weaknesses. And, by Superman's own admission, BlackRock did batter Superman unconscious. This one doesn't make the list for 2 reasons. One is that the nature of this story kind of implies that Superman is under some sort of telepathic influence, and that might have contributed heavily to his loss. And 2, BlackRock didn't really fight Superman, not in this example anyway. He ambushed him. This amounts to a sucker punch. We're looking for the winners of battles. Because BlackRock can do this, he could obviously win a real battle with Superman. The fact remains that it never happened. Honorable mention number 6. Baron Blitzkrieg. This is another character with enough power to overcome Superman. He's worth mentioning just to show another character who could win. But he didn't win. Baron Blitzkrieg lost when he fought Superman. Honorable mention number 7. Carbrak. Carbrak was a bizarre alien from the Andromeda Galaxy. His power was so vast that it rivaled even Superman's. They fought more than once, and Carbrak proved that he was a real threat to Superman. However, Carbrak never actually defeated Superman, at least not in any kind of actual battle, so he does not make the list. Number 8. Kralik. Kralik is a character that is only seen in a flashback. He fought Superman, and Superman won, which is why Kralik does not make the actual list of winners. The reason that he's mentioned here is because it demonstrates a classic, pre-crisis character who was not from Krypton, but was Superman's equal in power. The 9th and final honorable mention, Power Ring. Power Ring was an alternate reality version of the Hal Jordan Green Lantern. He was one of 5 characters who comprise an evil version of the Justice League that's called the Crime Syndicate. It was kind of like Mirror Mirror from Star Trek, although the Crime Syndicate story is actually older than that. He fought the Earth 1 Superman 2 times. Superman won their first battle, but then Power Ring easily overcame him in their second fight. So why doesn't this one count? Well, to be honest, I think it should count, which would bring my list to 15. But hardcore comic fans who know the rules of the old stories could easily say that this does not count, because this villain's ring is magic. Now, I don't think that it's the magic that defeats Superman. Magic powers the ring, but I don't think that the constructs are actually magical. I just think that Green Lanterns, and by extension Power Ring, are that strong. It's a highly debatable point, though, so I left him off of the main list. Now, on to the actual list. Which characters have fought Superman and won? Number 1, Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy is a very old character. He debuted in 1944 fighting the original Green Lantern. Grundy is an undead monster of rather murky origins, and he is immensely powerful. So much so that he literally defeated Superman in battle once. Number 2, Starro the Conqueror. If you describe Starro in one sentence, he sounds ridiculous. He is a giant alien starfish hell-bent on conquering other worlds. Some of his stories are very good, though, to anyone who can immerse themselves in the experience. It was chilling to see the heroes not only defeated, but subjugated to Starro's will. When Starro fought the Justice League in 1981, only 2 members of the Justice League managed to come close to that alien monster: Black Canary and Superman. That confrontation was very fast and very decisive, and Superman lost. Number 3, the Atomic Skull. The Atomic Skull is not a character that I'm particularly partial to, and honestly, he's not the only one on this list I can say that about. All the same, he was in at least one Earth 1 story in which he defeated Superman physically. Just flat out beat him. Here you see the Atomic Skull fighting Superman in 1981 in DC Comics Presents. His brain blast knocks the hell out of Superman, enabling the Skull to escape. Now, this would not put him on the list of characters who have defeated Superman. This would only make him an honorable mention. Here he is in the same issue, trying the same trick, and missing clean because Superman was prepared and he used his super speed to avoid the blast. It's obviously not enough. But here's the Atomic Skull a little over a year later and possibly more powerful. And when they fought on this occasion, the Skull blasted Superman into helplessness. This was not a momentary effect. This is a very real and decisive victory for the Skull's brain blast power. Number 4, Vartox. Vartox was a superpowered alien from the planet Valoron. Vartox was Superman's ally, not his enemy. But on more than one occasion, they did fight, usually without a winner. Except for this battle, when Vartox triumphed. I put Vartox right after the Atomic Skull because he defeated Superman with a similar power. He called it a hyper brain blast. So, real quick before I move on, there might be some in the audience who think that the Atomic Skull and Vartox should not be on the list. I did say that telepathy and mind control don't count. So why would a brain blast of any kind count? It's because the so-called brain blasts are not affecting Superman's mind directly. Mental energy powers the blast, but it strikes with physical force. The powers of both men work that way. Back to the list now. We're up to number 5, Ultra. Ultra was a superpowered being from Earth Prime. Earth Prime was an alternate Earth that Superman and other heroes traveled to on a few occasions. Ultra was not as strong as Superman, but he was close to it. Enough so to fight Superman. Twice. The first time they clashed, Superman won, hands down. The second time, though, Ultra knocked Superman clean out, in spite of being less powerful. Number 6, the Over-Complex. These creatures have to be mentioned right along with Ultra because they are from an Ultra story. These bizarre aliens, who are arguably a single alien, could change shape. And they had extremely potent energy powers. So much so that they were able to blast Superman with enough force that they believe they killed Superman. And Superman might have died if Wonder Woman hadn't rescued him from the ocean. Number 7, Neutron. Neutron got his powers from an atomic accident. He was not too terribly bright, but he was powerful. And when he fought Superman, Neutron won, and he walked away like it didn't even matter to him. Number 8, Mongol. Mongol was a terror from outer space, a hulking powerhouse who may have, emphasize may have, been stronger than Superman. They fought a few times. Superman won at least one fight, hands down. Mongol also won at least one fight, hands down. Number 9, the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor fought Superman one-on-one in the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Superman survived that battle only because he was rescued by Supergirl. Now, to be completely fair, you can say that this one doesn't entirely count because it took place in the Anti-Monitor's universe, where Superman's powers might have been diminished. I'm going to count it anyway, because even if that's so, it's not as though Superman's power was cut in half. His power was still immense, and I'm going to theorize that it was very, very nearly at its normal level. Next, we'll move into the past and the future at once. What I mean by that is, we'll see some of Superboy's defeats. Yes, this does count as a defeat for Superman. Superboy is, or rather was, the same character. So that was in Superman's past, but in the world's future, since these battles took place in the 30th century, where Superboy was a member of the Legion of Superheroes. Oh, and for the record, Superboy is every bit as strong as Superman. Number 10 on the list is the Nemesis Kid. The Nemesis Kid is one of those characters with a strange and impossible conceptual power. He has the ability to instantly develop any power that can defeat his opponent, even Superboy. Now, when I saw them pair off, I expected the Nemesis Kid to turn into a kryptonite man or something. His powers aren't always that specific, though. Instead, he just became super strong. Specifically, stronger than Superboy. The battle was not unwinnable for Superboy, but Superboy did not win. Number 11, the Persuader. The Persuader was the least formidable member of the Fatal Five, which is kind of like saying he's the friendliest shark in the tank. His power axe was a weapon capable of doing damage even to a Kryptonian, and it did. Number 12, another member of the Fatal Five, Validus. If I were to compare the Persuader to a thunderstorm, then that would make Validus a hurricane. In one of Validus's early appearances, Superboy claimed that Validus was 12 times stronger than himself. Now that I do not believe. But it is clear that Validus is more powerful than Superboy, by a considerable margin. This monstrosity has defeated Superboy not once, but twice. And on one of those occasions, Validus smashed Mon-El right afterwards. For those who don't know, Mon-El is at least as powerful as Superman, maybe stronger. And it still wasn't enough. Okay, back to Superman's defeats rather than Superboy's. Lucky number 13 is the Composite Superman. He may be the strangest character on this list. This warped supervillain had the combined powers of the entire Legion of Superheroes. In fact, I don't even have time to list all of his powers. Super strength and super endurance were among them, though. The Composite Superman claimed to have the combined strength of Supergirl, Mon-El, and Ultra Boy. Now, I don't believe that all that strength just arithmetically stacks up the way that he estimates. But even so, he was another villain who was absolutely more powerful than Superman. And he could not only defeat Superman, he could bat him around with ease. Number 14, the last entry on the list, Krog. This character was in a single story that took place over 2 issues in Superman Family. This creature was a violent threat from another dimension. He gains the top spot on this list because he didn't defeat just one Superman. He defeated 2. When he first arrived through the transmatter machine, Krog fought and overcame the Earth-1 Superman. And shortly after that, Krog pounded the Earth-2 Superman just as unconscious. The Supermen defeated Krog by joining together into a combined Superman. And, understanding the threat level of Krog, the 2 of them together decided that killing that monster was the only solution. Superman deliberately killing. That's another rare thing in old comics, but it was certainly appropriate to this particular villain. Well, there you have it. 14 of the most dangerous and powerful characters Superman ever fought. No conjecture or hypotheticals. These are the 14 that actually did it. And now that the list is done, I have to come up with something clever to end this video with. I'm having a hard time with that. Anyway, don't forget that for those few demented and desperate souls who actually want more, there is a companion video to this, in which I supply a few fun bits of trivia, and I rant about a few more things that irritate me about the comic book world. If I see you there, then thank you very much. And if I don't, well, I can't blame you. Until next time.